영권
골나갑니다. 정동현입니다. 정동현이 역전을 만듭니다. 2점의 갈비를.
Winners of the AFC Champions League 2020, Ulsan Hyundai.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Ryan Walters back for another daytime edition of the K-League United podcast. I, of course, am in the Kim Do-hoon bunker, virtually joined this week by, I guess we could say this is the Three Amigos, the original group. I'm joined by Matthew Binns.
Hello.
And Paul Neat.
Hello there.
And it feels like maybe, Matthew, you and I should just be on holiday more often because the three of us, this is 2 weeks in a row that we're doing this podcast. And, well, Paul, the last time we were doing this regularly were the heady days when FC Seoul used to get in Champions League all the time.
That seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yes, they were just in it last year, and that also feels like a lifetime ago. But
well, that does. But like the days of, 2016 getting to the semi-finals, Binns and I were at that game at the opposite end of the stadium that night. But yeah, that feels like a different lifetime ago.
Yeah, indeed. Matthew, how are things for you?
What? It's just too hot. It's hotter than Kim Akbum's training session. I feel like I've been acclimatized for the Olympics. He's locked me in.
I was going to say, are you allowed to open your windows at home?
Yeah.
Like, is Kim Hak-bum just sitting outside, just like looking in to see if you're opening any windows?
Binns, close them windows now. Oh, sorry. He seems quite scary, doesn't he, Kim Hak-bum? He wouldn't want to get on his wrong side.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, so yeah, for those who don't know what we're talking about, I guess we're talking about, he's alleged. It's been reported that he allegedly had players locked in a bus with no air conditioner. Well, the bus was driving and he was in a car behind or something and just taking note of which players were opening the windows to acclimatize themselves with the weather.
That's like John Beck, who used to be manager of Cambridge and Preston North End. He would have his players take a cold shower, ice cold shower before they went out onto the pitch. It's supposed to like get them psyched up and stuff. And he would do all kinds of like weird little tactics. Like, for example, Preston played on a plastic pitch and he would put sand down the wings so that the ball would hold up. And it was basically not route 1, but route 2. Pump the ball into the corner. Mm-hmm. And because the sand was there, it would slow down and then you could try and get a ball into the box. I reckon Kim Hak-bum would have loved all that. He would have been in his element.
I was going to say, you're just describing most K-League teams right now, actually. Route 2 football is what we're going to start calling that one now. We are here to indeed talk about K-League 1 and K-League 2. We're going to do something that we actually, oddly enough, don't do all that often. We're just going to talk about the weekend that was, because there was plenty over the weekend. And I would say quite literally every single result in K-League 1 was a bit of a shocker. So we're going to talk about that. That's where we're going to start. Then we'll move into the party that is K-League 2. And the curse of first continues. Nobody seems to want to hang on to that. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, we are going to talk about Tokyo 2020 in 2021. And we're streaming this live and or recording this just before the last match that Korea has against Honduras, which is happening tomorrow. So talk a little bit about that, and then hopefully next week we'll be talking about all of the games that they've won. And then we've got a little bit of a mailbag this week. But gentlemen, I'm not going to keep you waiting. I'm not going to Kim Hak-bum this situation and use stall tactics or anything like that. Let's just jump right into K-League 1. I'll go through the results, and then Paul, we'll have you start here. Okay, let's just get into this. Friday, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, the supposed title contenders, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, are at home on a Friday night, and they lose to Incheon United 2-1. Stefan Magosa with a brace there. Pohang Steelers of the AFC Champions League, advancing to the round of 16, lost 1-0 at home to FC Seoul. That was Seoul's first win in, I believe, 37 years, based on how things feel.
Close, yeah.
That was about right. And then the shocks continue on Sunday. We'll start with the small one. Gangwon FC was at home. They had a 2-0 lead, and then JG United stormed all the way back. Nope, other way around. This is how weird it was. JG United had a 2-0 lead, and then Gangwon came back and got things level at 2-2. And my mind was all over the place because Suwon FC went down to Ulsan, and Lars Veldwijk, I'm going to get it right one of these days, scored 4 goals and had an assist in their 5-2 victory over Ulsan Hyundai, the league leaders for now. We'll talk about that. But Paul, all that's on the table. Which ones are you picking up and taking a bite of there?
I am going to have to go for Pohang 0, FC Seoul 1. Now, if I was to be writing the match report for this, I think the sort of intro would be that they scored early in the second half and then were able to hold out and get the win, because if you look at the possession stats, it was 66% in favour of Pohang. So Seoul didn't have a lot of the ball, but they had the character, I think, which is very important considering they haven't won in 12 games in the league, 13 in all competitions. So be able to sort of score early in the second half and then hold on. That was it was impressive. And obviously it was Go Johan scored the winner. Only his second appearance of since coming back from injury. Again, typical of Go Johan. He's played in midfield. He played against Incheon in the centre of midfield. Then he was pushed up front. The graphics showed in a 4-4-2, but he was more of a 4-4-1-1 with him behind Gabriel. And those two combined for the goal. It was, you have to say, an error from Pohang. They gave the ball away quite cheaply, just on the sort of the cusp of the final third. Gabriel Barbosa picked the ball up and unselfishly played it through to Goyahan. He perhaps could have had a shot himself, but he saw that Goyahan was in a better position to his left. And he took the ball away into the near post, question marks over the goalkeeper. Can we say that anymore? I'm not sure if that's... maybe we get some backlash from the goalkeeper union, but Kang Hyun-moo was beaten at his near post. It was a good finish. And it was just a very, very important win, because now with the likes of Connor Chapman available soon, he's out of quarantine. Yordam's obviously joined. He made his debut against Poland, came on very late. They have these new players that are slowly starting to get bedded in. And now all of a sudden, the dark clouds are slowly starting to sort of drift away from above Sangam. And who knows? I mean, they moved up to 9th after that win. Obviously, after the games happened, after that game, they moved down to 10th again. But it just shows that one win can do a whole lot of good in K-League 1, especially in the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, and actually one of the things I was going to ask you on that is that it's weird to think about because of how stacked that midfield is, but is this a team that would be better off playing on the counter?
I think, yeah, probably. They do have a bit of pace in Nasangho and Choi Young-uk. It would be, and now they've got a target man with Gabriel. He's not an out and out striker. He did well against Pohang. I was impressed with the way that he performed, and I think, like I said to you last week, I think if Park Jin-sop, the manager, can sort of try and recreate the formula that he had at Gwangju with Felipe as his target man, then he might be able to get some success. So, yes, on the counter, if they've got someone like Felipe or Gabriel Barbosa to hold the ball up and have players playing beyond him, like Nasangho, like Choi Young-uk, like Polosevic, who was dropped to the bench against Pohang, people like him, then, yeah, maybe they can. And like I said, they had very little possession. And I think, I spoke to Osmar on Friday, and he was saying that they were trying out some new things in the build-up to this game. I'm not really sure what they were, because they didn't have a lot of the ball, but they seemed to press a bit more.
Yeah, it was not... it wasn't the best game, to be honest. It was pretty rough at times. The first half specifically was a bit rough. Yeah. But they got there eventually, and I think there was always going to be a little bit of rust.
It's a cliche, but you have to win ugly.
Yeah, I mean, they'll take the 3 points however they can get them at this point.
Absolutely.
For sure. Matthew, let's move on to your pick of this lot, because, again, there's a lot to go over here. What stood out most to you?
Yeah, well, I don't think... I think you've already kind of pointed out what stands out the most. It's the news that the Asian champions, Ulsan Hyundai, made their return to K-League by losing 5-2 to Suwon FC, and the headline act there being Lars Veldwijk, who grabbed the headlines for getting an assist Yeah.
Great.
That's it.
Very unselfish.
It was a very good assist.
It was
And
a very
that's all
good
we've
assist.
talked about. That's
Yeah.
all that we need to talk about with him.
No, I've put the words. Well, I think I've stolen this slightly from you, Ryan. But yeah, four goals. Well, 4 goals, Lars, or 4 Lashwari Nan, Jeremy. I don't know, but yeah,
4 Lars.
4. But yeah, it was incredible, an incredible performance. So we came into this game. I did the preview for this match, and there's not many times where I get a bit like, I write previews and it usually goes wrong, and sometimes I get it right. And this was one where I was quite pleased to see the attacking prowess of both sides, because coming into this match, both Suwon FC and Ulsan feature in the top 3 for shots in this league. Suwon FC actually have the second highest accuracy in the league behind Jeonbuk as well. They are a really attacking team, and Lars Veldwijk, he was coming into this match with 8 goals in his last 9 games. Certainly added to that now, hasn't he? And yeah, Ulsan and Suwon, two very different teams. Ulsan have dominated possession a lot this season. Suwon FC have been playing a lot more on the counter. They've been a lot leakier in defence. They've got the worst defence in the league, but their biggest defence is their attack. They're from the Kevin Keegan School of Football, really. But yeah, going through the match, it's opened Ulsan as predicted. They Vako with the opener, 21 minutes, and just persistence really from him to get that in. And then it all broke loose on the half-hour mark. I think Ulsan thought the stats were in their favour. They were the possession was through the roof. They finished with 62% possession, I think, in the end. And then suddenly a corner comes in from Murillo, former Jeonbuk player Murillo, headed in by former player Lars Veldwijk. 1-1.
Those guys are pretty good. You guys,
yeah, they're pretty good. I don't know. Maybe Jeonbuk should be looking at these, because then just 8 minutes later, then a breakaway from Lars Veldwijk. He plays a 1-2 with Yang Dong-hyun, and it's 2-1. All of a sudden, 2-1 going into half time. That's great. 2 minutes later, there's another breakaway. It's the ball squared to him by Lee Yong-jae, and Lars Veldwijk's there again. 3 goals in 10 minutes. Can't get any better than that, but it can. 2 minutes into injury time, it's 4-1. Another corner in, Lars Veldwijk on the header, and Yang Dong-hyun there at the far post to convert it in. And they didn't stop. Suwon kept up this attack straight into the second half. 4 minutes into the second half, they had the 5th. And it was Lars Veldwijk again, as we know. Turns Dave Bulthuis, and he drove to the byline, slots it through Cho Yun-woo's legs from a narrow angle. It was a goal filthier than my language on last week's podcast, I can tell you. But yeah, and Ulsan did get a penalty back, penalty later on, Lucas Hinterseer, but they were just absolutely stunned, Ulsan, where you can say there are some excuses. They are missing 4 players at the Olympics at the moment, and
sure,
unlike a lot of teams, Ulsan do rely a lot on these youth players that they have sent. I mean, they didn't need them for the ACL, but perhaps against K-League opposition it would have helped. They haven't got Won Do-jae, they haven't got Lee Dong-gyong, they haven't got Lee Dong-jun, Sol Yong-woo as well, who's been playing quite often from this season. They're all out. Kim Tae-hwan, whose birthday it supposedly was, well, he had obviously got too many cards for his birthday because he was banned for the weekend's match. So, yeah, they were missing key personnel. Bit of a hangover. It's their first return to K-League action where Suwon FC are in form. But let's not take anything away from Suwon FC. This was an absolute sublime performance, and it follows on from beating 2-1 Samsung Blue Wings last week, which we didn't get a chance to talk about because it happened in the week.
Right.
So yeah, they are doing well. They're up to 5th in the table. Granted, they've played a couple more games than everyone else around them. I don't know whether they've got the defence to maintain a high position in the top half, but they're definitely not going to be in any trouble if they continue like this.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Ryan. I was just going to say, because obviously Lars Veldwijk was in great form before the break, and it's really good for him because things didn't work out in Jeonbuk. I know he wasn't upset about it because obviously when you spoke to him last year, Matthew, but it just I wanted to see him do well, and he's in great form, and the fact that he can pick up where he left off just shows that he is a top player. But yeah, those who might wonder why I was talking about brunch cafe legend Lars Veldwijk, I bumped into him in Yangyang a couple of weeks ago. Of all the places, right. This really small brunch cafe in Yangyang, and I was like, wait, I recognize that guy. Wait, it's Lars Veldwijk. But I was a bit, like
the
I don't get
insane amount of
starstruck.
tattoos.
Yeah, and he's obviously has his bright blonde hair as well. But I don't normally get starstruck by people. But I was like saying to my wife, like, should I go and say hello? It's like, no, just leave him alone. It's like, no, I need to say hello. Anyway, whatever he was eating on that particular morning, I want to find out what it was because he's definitely had his Weetabix or something. He's been incredible.
He's been on fire since. Oh, it was not a Gucci burger from Gangneung. It was not that. Which, by the way, both of these cities are on the East Coast, up north, here in South Korea. Lovely time of year to be there, by the way. And Yangyang, fantastic place.
Love it.
But never, ever eat the Gucci burger. If you're very curious, I'm sure Matthew still has that horror show of a picture that we can post in the comments.
I think if you just type in Gucci burger and hashtag KLUpod, you'll find it pretty quick.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Speaking of things not going to plan, I wanted to end this just talking about who wants to be the K-League 1 champion and why is it always only Jeonbuk? Because Suwon Samsung Blue Wings looked like they had a shot. They were level on points with Jeonbuk heading into the break on 33. They came back. They lost 2-1 at home to Suwon and Incheon. They're still level on points, but they've played 3 more games, so that's not going to stick around. And Suwon, I mean, to be fair to them, I think they're probably a year or two away from really being a contender. But like we talked about last week, why didn't you go get Jonathan? What are you doing? He would... okay, so he's got to get match fit again, blah, 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 blah. But I really think he would have helped this team be a full-on title contender this year. Maybe they don't have the funds. I don't know. But I don't know how Gwangju can afford him and Suwon couldn't. So, that's them. And then there's Ulsan, who just went and Ulsaned all over themselves this weekend. And they still have a 4-point lead, but they also have played 3 more games than Jeonbuk. So, yeah. It's just like last year. It's just like 2019, where they've got the lead and they just can't build on it. Last year, we talked about this as the season was starting to wind down. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 games before the split. They could have gone 12 points clear, but they blew it. This is another one where you're both coming back from ACL. Again, obviously, we wish Jeonbuk players, staff, everybody else a speedy recovery. Hope COVID doesn't spread. It seems like everything's going fine there. You have to take advantage of that gap, though. Jeonbuk's not playing right now. You are. Build that lead, and they can just never, ever get that done. They can never just put their foot on Jeonbuk's throat and be done with this thing. And now Jeonbuk's going to come back after all of this with Song Min-gyu filling in a massive hole that they've had. Sasalak as a backup to Kim Jin-soo on the left side. Like, this team is just going from strength to strength when they were already pretty good. They got a massive confidence boost in not in Thailand, in Uzbekistan, because that's where they were in ACL. They're going to be firing on all cylinders when they get back, and Ulsan is just missing chance after chance right now. I just want someone else to challenge for this title, and it's just not going to happen. It looks like it on paper right now, but again, when Jeonbuk makes those games up, there's no way they're not top of the table when they've played as many games. There's no way.
Well, the thing is, it depends how Jeonbuk come back, and the same for Daegu as well. We've seen Ulsan and Pohang have a bit of a hangover coming back from ACL.
A Po hangover.
Yeah, a Po hangover. Basically, Pohang's transfer policy. But yeah, no, they've come back. Perhaps, I don't know whether you can argue about the pace of the ACL, or not the pace. Perhaps they've been playing also been in Thailand. So they've been playing a lot slower football. They've come back, they come straight back, and they've got 2-1 straight on them. There's been a break as well where they've had to self-isolate. Jeonbuk and Daegu are going to technically be in a worse state of affairs. Jeonbuk, they've had the PCR test back about an hour ago. They've just put an announcement out saying that everyone's come back negative, which is great news, but that means they haven't been training. So Jeonbuk are only going to start training from tomorrow, which is worrying because their first fixture is Suwon FC next week. Next week. So next Wednesday. So they're coming straight into versus a team that's already humiliated Ulsan. Yes, there are games in hand where Ulsan has failed to capitalise, and that probably will come back and haunt them though in Ulsan. but I don't think it's as clear cut as John Book's going to win the game in hand in this case. So I think same with Daegu. Daegu were doing very well with a longer meet and stretch before the break, but this extended layoff might not work in their favour. I think they've got Pohang though, haven't they? So perhaps it'll be all right.
Yeah, they might make it. We were about ready to head to a quick break, but we do have Thai League Central's Talau watching at the moment, and it's complimenting the fine threads that I've got on today. For those of you listening to the podcast, I'm wearing my Bootyram shirt because it's classy. It's got a collar on it, so it makes me look like I care about what I'm wearing when I really just want to wear a football shirt. But anyway, Matthew, I wanted to direct his question to you, which is, do BG have any chance against Jeonbuk in the round of 16 in ACL?
I mean, there's always a chance. Jeonbuk, notorious for underestimating opponents. That's nothing.
Especially Thai opponents, actually.
Yeah. I think Jeonbuk are going to be very strong for it. They've reinforced well over the summer, so they're going to be coming with a full-strength squad. Sasalak won't be with them, but they will have, as we've just mentioned, Kim Jin-soo, Min Son-min, Son Min-kyu on top of the squad that's just already been there at ACL, and they will have their first-choice goalkeeper back. So the odds probably are stacked against Altham United on this one.
Say it. Say what you wanted to say about odds.
I've
no, I was going to. The odds are ever in their favor.
Yeah.
Nothing. No Hunger Games fans. Is that too dated of a reference? People don't like Hunger Games. Whatever. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about K-League 2 on the other side of this break.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters. I am joined virtually by Matthew Binns and
Hello.
Paul Neat.
Hello.
And gentlemen, wardrobe appropriately, let's talk about K-League 2. And this weekend wasn't necessarily as shocking as it was in K-League 1. Daejeon Hana Citizen got a 3-1 result over Busanai Park. I feel like we might be talking about that one. The Ulsan Greeners fell 1-0 at home to Gimcheon Sangmu, who are now in first place in the league. Cheongnam Asan went and got their third win in a row, a 2-1 victory over Gyeongnam FC, and the mighty Jeonnam Dragons beat Bucheon FC 1995.
Is that their full name? I didn't know that.
It is. And again, as I usually reference with these kind of things, like A Tribe Called Quest, you have to say the whole thing. The mighty Jeonnam Dragons.
See, the more you know. Thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome. It's Tuesday. Tuesday trivia, Now we've got that hashtag Tuesday trivia. That's sorted. They came away 2-1 winners against Bucheon FC 1995, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. But, Paul, let's get started with you. And let's get started with Daejeon. What is this team of yours?
Oh, yes. It is the hope that kills you, which is why after back-to-back wins over Anyang and then Busan, you start to believe again. You start to think, well, maybe, just maybe, Daejeon are in this title race. It's 3 points behind top. And they would have a favourable fixture next. But it's Asan, who, as you just said, have won their last 3 and are unbeaten in 4. So this is the kind of game that Daejeon would normally find difficult. They quite typically would not underestimate their opponents, but find it a bit difficult to sort of break down the sort of so-called smaller teams. But against Busan, I think the headline in that was that they came from behind. An Byung-jun scored a penalty. But then from thereafter, really, in fact, for most of the game, even before the penalty, I thought Daejeon looked in total control. It was a very good performance. Lee Jong-hyun leveled from distance. It took a bit of a deflection, but as Ryan, as you know, he can hit them. He scored an absolute belter against the Dragons away earlier in the season.
I don't remember that.
The second was a superb finish from Kim Sung-sop. He's been out injured and only returned last week, and he looks like a proper player now. He's a very old-fashioned winger. He only really runs in straight lines. He is a number 11. He's a left winger. In the modern game, as you know, these kind of players are quite rare, and you have to wonder where he fits in. But he's been playing on the left side of a front three, and basically he is, or could have been, or should be, the K-League 2 Kim In-sung. Kim In-sung is now in the K-League 2, so that doesn't really work anymore. But someone who's just very, very quick and direct. But unlike Kim In-sung, he can finish, and he finished very well. It was a right-footed finish, sort of from the edge of quite far out. Hit it first time, curled into the top corner. And then, like I said, it was just in total control. Then the third goal came in quite late. Shin Sang-eun, who is a first-year professional, he scored on the first game of the season in the win against Bucheon. And so expectations were raised after that because, who's this guy? He's very tall, he's quick, he's quite strong, but he's very tenacious. And I think what happens is he gets sent on late just to run at tired defenders, not necessarily to try and score, but just to be a nuisance. And he has proved to be that. He's very, very raw, as I say. But then he scored. It was a very good ball into the box towards him. He took it down very well. He kind of wrong-footed the defender, so he had space on his right foot and then tucked it into the corner. 3-1 and a great performance. I'd also like to say that Ali Bayev was fantastic. He looks a cut above in this division, as we know, because we saw him in the first half of 2019 with FC Seoul. He was good in K-League 1 in the team that finished third. But he's just everywhere. He can drop deep. He gets stuck in. He can hold the ball up. He can run into the half spaces. He provides that extra man in attack. He tried to score from the halfway line. It didn't quite work. But he has scored them before. He scored one back in Uzbekistan a few years ago. And I spoke to him on Saturday night, and he said he is going to try that again. So hopefully no K-League 2 goalkeepers are listening to this podcast. If you are, Ryan, can you chop that bit out for the recorded part of the podcast? But he was quite upset that he didn't get a goal or an assist. He says, but he got the second assist for the second goal. He was the one who played the ball into the person who provided the assist. And I'm not saying assists are easy because they're not. But if somebody has got the vision to play the ball into the right area, knowing that this person can, be in the right place to play the ball in for an assist, sometimes that is more important. So he's contributing very well. He seems to have fit in with the rest of the team. Daejeon's media staff do this off the pitch series on YouTube, kind of a behind the scenes thing in the changing rooms as well. And he does seem to be getting on well with the rest of the team. So it's very good to see. And he was excellent. Also, one more thing, the goalkeeper, Lee Jun-so. Now this was only his, I think, third appearance as a professional. He found himself in the first team because Kim Dong-jun has been, frankly, very disappointing. I don't think he's the same goalkeeper he was before his injury. He dislocated his shoulder last season. And I think there's a lot of pressure on him because he is Daejeon's record signing. He costs well over $1 million. And I'm not sure. I wouldn't personally miss him if he was to go. But Lee Jun-so, he's supposed to be a very, very very highly rated young goalkeeper. And he performed excellently again. He looks very assured. If you put in a 19-year-old goalkeeper, you think, oh, God, this is going to be very nervy. But he didn't seem to be flustered whatsoever. And, it was a very, very good performance throughout the team. 3 players made it into the best 11 for this week, round 22, as we saw just earlier on social media. And it bodes well. But as I said before, they are playing against Ulsan this weekend, who are, the league's in-form team. Nobody is in better form than them right now.
Yeah, and that leads in perfectly to what I believe you're going to be talking about, Matthew, which is the Owls.
Yeah, it wasn't originally going to be my first choice. Obviously, I don't dive into K-League 2, don't wander into these waters too often. But
for shame.
Yeah, I just thought I had the Ulsan Gyeongnam game on at the same time as the Ulsan Suwon game. I thought they played well. I was watching it more out of interest for Gyeongnam because I criticised them heavily on last week's podcast. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm still not sure what they are after watching them against Ulsan. Gyeongnam, they got an early lead. It was a bit of a jammy one. Ball came out and landed at Chae Gwang-hun's feet at the edge of the box, and it looked like a cross. When it went in, he didn't really celebrate as if he had meant it. But, he's not going to care how he gets them. It was just a looping cross and snuck in at the back post. And then Gyeongnam continued to push. Asan, once again, Baek Song-dong missed chances he should be scoring, something we mentioned last week. Gyeongnam aren't finishing scoreable opportunities. So they do it every week. They really need a finisher there. Then, Asan with a very decent equaliser from Kim Kang-kuk. The ball came out from a corner to the edge of the area. I can't remember who missed the initial shot, but it bounced down. And, on the volley or half volley, I can't remember whether it had bounced or not, but he just very little backlift, very little follow through, just nice little finish, looped it straight into the top corner. 1-1 before half-time. There was an argument for it to be 2-1 before half-time. They scored an excellent goal just before the break, but it was disallowed due to a push in the build-up. But not to worry, moments into the second half, Han Young-soo headed in the winner. Headed in the free kick to get what turned out to ultimately be the winner. And it was just a good, solid performance from Asan. It was, I think we tend to just have been throwing them at the bottom of the pile. Maybe we don't know enough about them as well sometimes, but they deserve praise. It's a win off the back of trouncing and humiliating Jeonnam Dragons.
Whoa!
Exposing that solid defence. So, as you said, it's 3 victories on the bounce, 4 unbeaten. And, they did concede at the weekend, but the 3 games prior were all clean sheets as well. So they were they're getting back into form. Is Daejeon next week, who they beat quite convincingly not so long back as well, as Paul has already mentioned. It now means the level on points with Gyeongnam, though. So last week we were talking about how underwhelmed we are with Gyeongnam and this team that should be up there promoting. But then suddenly Asan are here now, they're level with them. They're only 5 off Busan in 5th. So, Gyeongnam and Busan are 2 teams we always feel obliged to talk about frequently. And the 2 sides with far greater budgets. And this whole league has a greater budget than Asan. And they're still helmed by Park Dong-hyuk. And I think we used to really praise Park Dong-hyuk after they won the title under the guise of Asan Mugunghwa in 2018 when they were still the police side. Obviously, a lot has changed there with the police police pulling out and funding issues, trying to turn into a citizen club, trying to start their own revenue streams. He stayed there and he's continued to build this team up. And they're not going to be getting promoted anytime soon. Let's not get carried away. But they just look like he's trying to form an identity there, and that's a hard task. They're 5th highest for shots in the league. They've got the 2nd best accuracy in the league. Got the lowest possession, though. They are very much a counter-based team. But, he's working with what he's got. And, all credit to him. I think we should really be doffing our caps to Park Dong-hyuk.
Yeah, agreed. He has done a good job over the years and good on the team for sticking with him, because we do see a lot of managerial changes happen really quickly. K2. It's always very close, and it remains close because, like you say, right now, Cheongnam Asan are just 5 points behind Busan Park, who are just 6 points off of the lead. I mean, yes, that's got Asan 11 points behind, but just showing we're going almost all the way from the bottom all the way to the top, and there really isn't much of a gap there, which leads into the team that I was going to talk about. Ooh, surprise, surprise, it's the Jeonnam Dragons. But this year, it's not just because I want to, it's because, as you were saying, Paul, it really is the hope that'll kill you, because there are weeks this year where the Dragons have finished the game and have been like, we're going to lift the shield. We're going to win the league. We're going to do this. And I'm preparing my trip for the last game of the year, which is obviously going to be at home, that will win 5-0, I assume, to lift the trophy. And it'll be great. But they did indeed win over the weekend, which I think was really good because of how they lost against Asan. Like you say, Matthew, it was rare. That was the most goals they've conceded in a game. Again, as I said last week, that was 1/5 of the goals that they had conceded this season up to this point. So that was a really, really massive loss for them to take on the chin like that. And look, scheduling was in their favor. Bucheon's dead last in the league. Bucheon continues to struggle this year. They've shown signs, but it's not been a good year for Bucheon. So that was in the Dragons' favor. And they did come away winners in this one. mainly because this team goes as Balotelli goes right now. If Jonathan Balotelli's on the score sheet, then the Dragons usually win, and that was the case here. Again, had some really quick reflexes on this one to get what eventually was the game winner, and it's a good thing he did because Park Chung-joon got on the scoreboard for Bucheon late in this one, so we did need that 2-0 lead. Kim Hyun-wook had a very good captain's performance in this one. Still breaks my heart to see anybody other than Chae Ho-jin wearing the captain's armband for Jeonnam, but he's more in a coaching role this year. He has been playing a little bit more lately, though. I think the summer heat is requiring more rotation, so he actually has been getting some minutes, but I think he's mainly just getting his coaching experience this year. But yeah, for the Dragons, they're level on points with Gimcheon. A team that we also haven't talked about is Gimcheon Sangmu. They have finally truly come good. They only have 1 loss in their last 5, 3 wins in their last 5, and the military side is top of the table, as I think literally all of us predicted preseason. So they're there, but they've got a lot more challengers, and Gyeongnam ain't one of them. I don't think Gyeongnam's going to be one of them, like you were saying, Matthew, last week, and then again this past weekend. I don't know if they've got it in them, but the Dragons certainly do. Anyang certainly do. As Paul was saying, Daejeon certainly do. Busan look like they could maybe get up in there. Ansan Greeners aren't that far off from the playoffs, and we've seen what they can do, especially when Asnawi's in the lineup. Missed penalty aside. Also, folks, leave the dude alone. The first one should have stood, okay? So leave Asnawi alone. I'm not going to do the whole crying leave Brittany alone thing, but it is close. I will stand up for Asnawi. But yeah, the Dragons right now, I think they just got to figure out how to score more goals. Samuel not even being a threat to goal does not help us at all. Lee Jung-ho, I think, needs to get at least 1 or 2 more to really try to help take some pressure off Balotelli. But hey, if Balotelli can keep scoring him in the meantime, works for me. So whatever gets the job done, but they are level on points right now, and they are behind both in goals scored, which is more important in K-League 2, and goal difference right now. So they're gonna have to win. They got to get back to winning ways, and it's not necessarily an easy task because they got to make the trip to Ulsan this coming weekend to face the Greeners. So we shall see, but K-League 2 remains as close as ever, and it just always does, which is what makes that league so much fun. But we are running a little bit long, so I'll keep my segment brief here and just say we're going to win the league, and it'll be the most joyous experience that I've had.
Objection, you on it. Objection.
This sport that I dedicate my life to. It'd be really great to see my team win a title. Matthew, what's that like? Is it fun? Is it good?
Oh, it's great.
You're not get sick of it after a while? Too much? Again.
Can't get enough.
All right. Well, we're going to take a really quick break. And on the other side of this, we're going to talk about this small little tournament happening over in Japan right now. We'll be right back.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at K-League United with any questions, comments or reactions. Or follow us on Facebook to ask directly during one of our live shows.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by Matthew Binns, and the late arrival off of the bench, Paul Need, is back with us.
Hello there.
Looking sharp.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk about the Olympics. We kind of buried the lead this week, mainly because I wanted to talk about K-League, because that's what we do, and also because the group stage isn't set. It's nowhere near complete yet, and a lot of that, it could have been complete. We could have known that South Korea was going to go through, Korea Republic as they're known in these tournaments, had they gotten a result against New Zealand, but they did not. The opening game saw the Kiwis win 1-0 over the Taeguk Warriors there. We'll talk about that one. And then they came back and they got I'm going to call it a resounding win. 4-0 over Romania. There was a red card in that game. There was an own goal that opened the scoring, but I do still think that was a really important scoreline for them to get moving forward. And before we get into this, I'm just kind of calling this segment like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess we'll kind of start with, a lot of folks are calling it ugly. Do we want to talk about Lee Dong-gyun and his incident with Chris Wood after the New Zealand game? Is this being blown out of proportion?
Yeah,
no,
yes and no.
fair. Sorry, Matthew. I think it's fair to criticize him for not shaking hands. It's a bit. You can't say it's because of COVID, because if that was the case, he would have probably said something like, "Oh, sorry." He would have gestured in a way that made it look like he wasn't being rude. But to me, he was just being a sore loser.
Also, you just went and played football for 90 minutes. Like, a handshake is not the most of your concerns after literally rubbing up against each other, sweat and breathing on each other. Like,
yeah, even just a fist bump would have been suffice,
Yeah, for those that don't know, by the way, Lee Dong-kyun, after the 1-0 loss, was standing, consoling himself, just getting his thoughts together, whatever he was doing. And Chris Wood went out of his way to go over and try to shake hands. And Lee Dong-kyun just kind of a half-hearted fist bump, kind of like hit his hand away a little bit and just wasn't having any of it. The GIF is all over Twitter. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you've already seen it. But Matthew, you got thoughts on this? What do you got?
Well, no, I do agree. It's not really good sportsmanship. He's a young player. They all are. They should know better. It's not like they haven't been doing it their whole careers at youth level. They should know better to shake hands. I think frustration probably showing there for Lee Dong-kyun. My thing with it is I don't want it to get too blown out of proportion. He probably has. I think he has apologized now, but he probably caught up with him afterwards, and yeah, he should be told that's not on. But let's, for the millions of things there's witch hunts for on social media, not shaking someone's hand. Just he's at the moment. He's done wrong. I'm sure he's aware he's done wrong. Mm-hmm. He looked like he didn't do anything unsportsmanlike at the end of the Romania match. I hope he's just learned his lesson and moved on.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, definitely shouldn't be doing that. Let's not blow it all out of proportion, though.
I mean, that leads into something that I want to ask here, and then we will get into these games and actually talk about these games that have happened and talk a little bit about Honduras. Is there too much thrown at these kids right now? I mean, it just feels like, and this kind of plays into the player I'll be talking about in a little bit. I'll leave that lead buried for now, but I mean, especially when you factor in the fact that if they get a medal, then they get military exemption, so that pressure is there, and it just feels like everything's under a microscope much more than it is when they play in K-League, for example. Mm-hmm. Is there too much thrown at them?
It's Korea. There always will be. It's always been. It's always been a country where fans support the country first and aren't even aware of what games are on the weekend. They could tell you who Son Heung-min's got next week, but they wouldn't have a clue where is Pohang away.
Pohang again.
Well, I want to win it and keep with it. But yeah, no, there's always been that pressure here, and it's the Olympics. It's in Japan, which is always an extra thing here, and there is the medals that are riding on it. I don't know whether the fans are thinking about the military exemption, but they definitely want to see Korea do well, and rightly so. Yeah, you do want to see your country do well. Mm-hmm. They are kids, but it is part of the territory that comes with Korea.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
think
what I would add to that, Matthew, is I think that playing in this kind of high pressure environment like the Olympics will definitely help them in their careers. Mm-hmm. Definitely, they to be able to experience it, not just be able to play in the Olympics and represent South Korea is one thing, but be able to experience like that kind of expectation levels will definitely do them good. There's a lot of young players, obviously, so I think it will be a learning experience for all of them.
Yeah, and I'll agree with both you guys say, and maybe we'll get into that more at another time, or maybe in a future mailbag, or after we find out what actually happens in Group B here. Let's move on to one of the goods, and I'm kind of player specific on my end of things here, and I'm stealing from Pete in his Honduras preview here, and praising Jung Tae-uk, the giant defender that used to be in our intro. I think we've just got to get him back in there because everybody always refers to him now as the giant defender Jung Tae-uk. Or as the commentator said, Jung Tae-wook, but we forget about that. Anyway, I thought he had a really great match against Romania. Again, the red card kind of skewed things, but it was a very physical game. I don't know if South Korea said mean things about Romania other than what MBC put out for graphics for countries and the opening ceremony, which, whew, if you haven't seen that, then actually I might have just answered my own question here. I think maybe having Count Dracula as the image representing your country on one of the major networks in South Korea had them a little bit upset at the Korean side. So maybe that's why. But it was a very, very physical battle. And that's nothing new for K-League players, sure. But I thought Jung Tae-uk handled himself really well. I thought that the defense in general had a really good match and allowed the team to move forward in the way that I think they want to move forward more. And again, I wasn't really sold in the first half, certainly, but I think by the end of the game, you could almost see the weight coming off of their shoulders. You could almost see them growing into the team that I think we all expect them to be and that they can be. And I think they needed this confidence booster. And I think a lot of that came from a rock-solid defense led by Jung Tae-uk. So he was my positive in the Romania match, which again I'm just going to ignore the New Zealand match for now because it was a bit rough. But that's the positive takeaway from me. Matthew, we'll come back to you here. Before we get into any of the negatives, let's start with the good side of things.
I think they looked better against Romania, obviously.
Sure.
I think they looked more energized, and having Lee Dong-jung and Song Min-kyu on the wings, that certainly seemed to inject some life into... I don't want to go too much into what I think is the bad thing here, but it certainly injected life and helped create chances against Romania. Yeah, they did benefit from having a man advantage for the majority of proceedings, but they did still take the lead before they went 1-0 up. And yeah, it was an own goal, but that own goal comes from firing in a low ball into the box. Mm-hmm. And if Marin doesn't turn that into his own net, there's a good chance that the player coming in behind him will. But sure, maybe that player might not, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in bad.
Yeah, NBC also fantastic on that one because they said thanks Marin for their goal graphic on that one. So when you're on top, just keep going, I guess. Yeah. If you're, and again, it's not NBC as in national, it's MBC, yeah,
which ironically stands for Munhwa Broadcasting Company. Munhwa meaning a culture in Korean. So kind of ironic their name there, I think.
Just a touch.
Not very cultured, are they?
All right, Paul, say something nice, and then we'll move on to the not so good parts.
Right, the nice stuff I want to talk about is Kang Yun-song, the left back. Now, I thought he was excellent in the first game. Well, he was good in the first game, but he was excellent against Romania. He's very fit, despite not having played that much for Jeju towards the end of the sort of K-League 1 break. He's just because he's so versatile. He can play in central midfield. He can pass the ball, but he got up and down that left-hand side well, I thought, and he always wanted the ball. He was always showing for it, and he provided the assist for Lee Gang-in when he came on. I think in turned the game. I think when Lee Gang-in came on, I know Matthew mentioned Song Min-kyu coming on as well, but I thought Lee Gang-in, there was a little bit more down the middle, a bit more attacking impetus down the middle because I thought decision-making questionable. But the positive was that I thought they have the options on the bench. Mm-hmm. You know, if plan A isn't working, they have a plan B. And Kang Yun-song, who, as you can tell by his shirt number 19, he wasn't supposed to be in the squad. He was one of the 4 that were added late. Mm-hmm. But it's strange because he started both games. He wasn't supposed to be in the original 18-man squad, but he started both games. So interesting again from Kim Ak-bom. So whether he'll start the third game, I don't know. You know, these kind of things happen where players can play very well, and then they are, you know, brought to the bench for the third game. If he is in the starting lineup, I would expect him to be just as important as he was against Romania.
Yeah, indeed. In the lineup choices there, we also didn't touch on the fact that Lee Kang-in didn't start this match, so that was also a very interesting lineup choice. Perhaps giving a little bit of rest ahead of Honduras. I'm not sure what was going on there. So I'll just kick off the not so great parts. And Hong Yi-jo, buddy, what are you doing? Pick it up a notch. He's just been real poor in the 2 games in Tokyo so far. 3 shots on target in 2 games. 6 touches in the penalty area. So he's getting there. He's just not finding the mark when he does. Obviously, no goals, no assists for him yet. And he only had 67% passing accuracy against Romania. This was a match that they had a man advantage that they won 4-0. And he's not connecting on 70% of his passes. And this is somebody that we've seen do well in the Asian Games. We saw him get a brace in World Cup qualifying against Turkmenistan, which was one of the stronger teams in that group. And if Korea's going to go any further in this tournament, they need him to show up. He's one of the overage players. You know, he's there to score goals. And I brought up the pressure earlier because I don't know if that's what's getting to him here. I mean, obviously, we know that Kim Hak-bum loves this man and is going to include him in every single squad that he can. And that has been justified at times, but as of right now, it's just not good enough. And the problem with this squad makeup is if you pull him out, who do you even put in his place? There really isn't a like for like for this Korea squad right now. So they just need him to do what he's there to do and start scoring goals, or at least setting them up and looking threatening, because the decision-making, the finishing, the body positioning right now, again, he's getting into good positions, but when he's getting the ball, I just don't know. I don't know what's happening in his mind, because he's fluffing his lines all the time. Like, it has not looked good from him at all. It's only 2 games, sure, but you don't get a lot of chances if you screw up in the first 2. So for me, he has to be better in this match, especially because, again, as an American, I can promise you, do not underestimate Honduras. And actually, Korea knows that all too well, because that was a team that knocked them out of Rio 2016. So this is not a match to take lightly, and this is a really tough final fixture. And they need Hwang Hee-jo to actually show up and be the striker he was brought into this side to be. So he's the one to watch for me, and he's also the one that's just, more than anybody else, he is the one that I've been looking at and just shaking my head a lot, because you expect better out of him. So anyway, Paul?
For me, it was in some aspects a typical Korea performance. Decision-making was just very questionable. I think if you just sort of look at it in the glass half full, there was a lot of endeavor. It was played at a good pace in the final third. But then it meant that things were a little bit rushed. It was always the wrong pass. But then when I think it was Lee Dong-kyung, Tokyo Lee, when he played the ball through, when it was the right pass for Hwang Hee-jo, and he had that one-on-one, and he fluffed his lines, it was just, you think, I've seen this before. I've definitely seen this movie before, and I walked out halfway through. So that was what summed up for me. I mean, I looked at the shots made to shots on target ratio, and it wasn't actually that bad, because the problem wasn't, I don't think, shooting accuracy. It was getting into a place where they can have a shot. There wasn't enough based on the possession that they had. So I want to see that improve. But like I said before, Lee Gang-in, when he came on, I thought things looked a lot better. So hopefully, the Korea's point of view, I hope he starts.
Yeah.
And he plays in that number 10 role, because they're going to need somebody to be able to spot the runs of Hwang Hee-jo. Maybe they're just on the wrong wavelength of Hwang Hee-jo. I'm not sure what the problem is really, but maybe if they can find someone like Lee Gang-in who can see those through the eye of a needle passes, then yeah, they might have a bit of success against Honduras.
Matthew?
I don't think I've really got anything much more to add than what you two have just said. I think we were talking about how much pressure there is on the Korean squad when they come back. And yeah, you said pressure on Hwang Hee-jo, but he is also the one who should be alleviating, as a wild card, as a senior player, he's the one who should be alleviating the pressure on these younger players. And yeah, okay, that's still not entirely fair on him. There should be other players stepping up to the plate to score. It's not just a one-man team, but when you're in that team to score and you are clearly the only real striker, the only real finisher in this team. You need to put them in when those young players, they make any of those opportunities. As Paul said, there's not been many made. I do think against Romania there was a lot of fouling. There was quite a lot of a lot of hard tackles flying in. It kind of broke up play a bit, but when they did get into those positions, Hwang Hee-jo has to put those in. He might. If you keep giving him the chances, he will eventually put one in, and maybe then the floodgates will open and he'll start scoring more. It is good though that other players have now found the net, because we don't just need Hwang Hee-jo anymore. We're all capable of scoring. We're all capable of getting on the score sheet. But yeah, Hwang Hee-jo, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to see. By the time you're listening to this podcast, you'll already know what's happened in Group B. And yeah, it's going to be interesting as well, because they have a chance to win the group, obviously, in which case they would face the team that is currently second in Group A, which would be Mexico. So no big deal there. And if they finish second, the team that is currently in first is Japan. So and France is also lurking in third in that group. So there really aren't many easy options. So I think if you're Korea, you have to have a strong performance against Honduras that's going to build confidence, that's going to build cohesion, because that next match, it ain't going to be easy. So we'll see how that one goes. Anyway, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come back on the other side with this week's Ulji Luis mailbag. We'll be right back.
Ulji Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Giro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favourites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Ulji Lewis is sure to become your favourite neighbourhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit, and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by Paul Neat, and in the Ulji Lewis mailbag, it's Matthew Binns. This has been happening a lot lately.
Yes, we have one in from Twitter this week from Suwon FC fan in Spain, which must be having a great week after those two results. Greetings from Spain. Some Spanish players have played in the K-League, like Osmar, Gavilan, etc. Which one has impressed you the most?
I mean, it's hard to argue against Osmar.
Yeah, 200 K-League appearances, and I wrote an article about him quite recently, just to sort of, I think, highlight the importance of him on and off the field at FC Seoul. His contract is running out at the end of this year, and I just hope that the board there aren't going to underappreciate his contributions, because I know he's 33, but he don't need to be 21 and lightning quick to play in the positions that he plays. So, yeah, have a read of that. You can see what I think about Osmar and what he thinks about football and his philosophies and whatnot. But yeah, Osmar. I mean, there haven't been that many. Maybe we need more players from Spain to be able to sort of see.
Agreed. Luckily, though, FC Seoul doesn't have any history of like a player in their mid-30s with a lot of history with the team, playing really well. Then they would just completely scrap all of that and get rid of him for no real good reason, and then be a bit crap in that position for years to come. They don't have a history of that.
No, thank God for that, eh?
Yeah, it's not Dayan's birthday today or anything, which, by the way, happy birthday, Dayan. Which the AFC put out a tweet today, his 40th goal in ACL for his 40th birthay. So
nice.
Yeah, at least you didn't miss any. At least you didn't miss anything there, FC Seoul.
Yeah,
good call.
A quick plug is I have an interview. I did an interview on Saturday actually with Dayan about his ACL contributions and whatnot, and he picks for, I think, what will be a Patreon exclusive. I asked him what his all-time ACL teammate 11 would be, and there are some interesting selections, some controversial omissions as well. So Patreon subscribers, watch this space. It should be up quite soon.
Yuhyun and Net, I assume.
Oh yeah, he's a shoo-in, yeah.
Gotta be.
Yeah, I think Osmar for me as well. There was Vera John Book in late 2015. He made a massive 6 appearances and 0 goals after they sold Edu in the summer. Disappeared from the squad after September. I can't remember exactly whether it was an injury. It was a while ago. I wasn't writing for the website then. I was just a fan in the stands, celebrating another title. But and also Gavilan as well. Just as we're talking about cheeky plugs, all I remember about him was he was my big signing on one of my Football Manager challenges on the website. So
that's right.
How was he?
I signed him, and it resulted in me trying to offload Kevin Orris to balance the books, and Kevin Orris wouldn't take a mutual termination, and so I deregistered him from the squad and still paid him $9,000 a week. So that went really well for me.
Well done. I've done that before on Football Manager. Because sometimes when you sign players on a free transfer, or you sign players and they can't join until the next transfer window. So I completely forget. Maybe I don't play the game for a few days or a few weeks, and then I forget, and then I don't sell anybody else. So I'm stuck like 5 foreign players. Like, I've done it again.
Anyway, next up in the mailbag, we have... he did have one more question saying, do we think Lars will be with Suwon FC for a long time? I hope he'll have a long career in the K-League. I figure if he continues this form, then perhaps ACL clubs will come sniffing. I don't think John Buck will be making a return for him anytime soon, but if Ulsan need a striker in the future, or Pohang, he could be a good fit there. But I'd like to see him stay at Suwon FC for a bit longer. He's worked wonders there. He's got them promoted. It'd be good for him to continue.
Yeah, but look, Suwon FC is a citizen club. If he wins the Golden Boot, he's going to China or the Middle East because Suwon needs the money. They proved it last year. They sold An Byung-jun after he was the runaway Golden Boot winner as they were on their way up to K-League 1. He was a proven asset at the time, and they sold him at what was probably his highest value. And, worked out for Busan as well. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't work out for any team that would get Lars in return, but I think Suwon FC specifically, if he keeps up... I don't know that he's going to be able to keep up 12 goals in 10 games kind of form. If he does, oh, baby, this is going to be all sorts of fun. But either way, I think if he finishes with 20, 25 goals, something like that this season, I think he's going to be bringing in a paycheck for Suwon FC.
I noticed that Dan Croydon is saying about Sergio Escudero, but I know he was born in Spain, but I think he's Argentine Japanese, so I'm not sure if we can count him as a Spanish player. But yeah, he was great as well, especially in 2012. He was in 13. He was superb for FC Seoul.
Right then. Next on my list is from Blackbean Burnley fan. What elements do you not like in K-League? Registered names, stadium announcers, or team names with provinces? Knows we hate the goalkeeper limit in K-League, so wants other things.
Well, the stadium announcers is something that I do find quite tiresome. I don't think we need... I think it comes across as being a little bit Mickey Mouse, a bit tin pot, when we have the sort of Jack goal thing in the middle of a match. I think once the game has started, that there should be none of that. It's not a game of ice hockey. You know what I mean? You don't want that. I don't like that at all. And it's too loud as well. It's just too loud. The names thing, I don't really mind. I don't really care about.
I love the province names. I don't know where that even came from. I'm a Jeonnam fan.
Yeah.
I like that. I like also what Gangwon does. I like that Gangwon moves around the province and actually represents that entire province. Like I like that personally, because that gives everybody a little taste of football in the region. So that was a weird inclusion for me.
To me, I think that if it was to be anything, it would be the referees. To be honest, I have to say that. I just don't think that we have seen the league has grown and progressed, and the quality of play, even just since I've been in Korea since 2013, has improved a lot. It's a good product, but you do see people on Twitter and whatnot mention that the standard of officiating can sometimes make you not want to watch. So I think if we can find... I'm not even sure if K-League referees are fully professional. I know that's what they did in the UK about 15, 20 years ago to try and improve the standard of refereeing, make them professional so that it is their craft. They don't have part-time jobs. They don't have full-time jobs and they do other things. I think they need some educating. I don't want to always be like, oh, we need foreign refs, like overseas. Everything overseas is going to be good. I don't think that is really it'll be a good short-term fix, but for long-term to improve referees in the K-League, and then we can maybe see a Korean ref in the World Cup. You know, I don't think we're going to get to that point yet because it is, frankly, sometimes a little bit annoying to watch.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily want to just say bring in foreign refs for it, but look, when we're hopefully in a world where travel is more of a thing, hopefully we could see something like a travel corridor between, Japan and Korea. That's always going to be contentious, but Japan, Korea, China, and maybe Hong Kong, a couple of other countries that are nearby, and you can have refs on kind of a rotation where the teams of referees would go to these different countries and bring in some experience from outside, which, like you say, Paul, would also include Korean referees going abroad and getting that experience, which, here in Asian football, Australians always talk about Australian refs in the EPL that are also in the World Cup. It's a massive honor, and it really brings a lot to the country. But yeah, man, I'll just stop it with VAR. I know we say it all the time, but like that's my football-wide gripe, really. But I think K-League specifically, we've got to start putting a shot clock on them, right? Like in basketball, you got 24 big old seconds that are counting down. Give me 30 seconds of this ref at that screen because I can't take it anymore. Yeah. And you only get your finger in your ear for 15 seconds. Let's move on. Like it's
too long.
It's really killing the game. So that's not even a K-League thing for me as much as it's just this is something that's got to be fixed in the game in general. And to me, a time limit would also bring back in that element of human mistakes, because if it's not clear after 30 seconds, then it's probably fine. Like, look, Henry's handball against Ireland, they're going to call that within 30 seconds because it's obvious. So get out of my face with that. These kind of things could happen. That one's very obvious. But the other stuff, if it's not, then it's not. And you go with the call on the field, and you give the ref that authority of the match, which they no longer have.
Yeah, our very own Dan Croydon, again in the comments, is a good idea, actually, is that he's sick of playing the same teams 4 times. I think that's a good point.
That is a good point.
I have to admit that I am envious when I look at J-League tables and see how many teams that there are. I would love to live in a K-League world where there's 18 K-League 1 teams, there's 16 in K-League 2, the pyramid opens. Yeah, I fully agree that is a great shout.
I think 16 in K1 would certainly be doable, you know, and then everybody just plays each other twice, and then we move into a split round maybe, or maybe we bring back actual full-on playoffs. Just saying. But yeah, no, that's a good shout as well. I do think more teams would be nice. But yeah, as far as gripes go, get rid of VAR.
All right. Next, the final question in the mailbag.
It's from Orion in Seoul, actually, this one.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, because it hasn't got a name on it. It's Orion in Seoul. I wonder who that is. No, I think
there are many of us
in here about Anyang, the Anyang FC, the FC Anyang, rather, FC Anyang piece that is on our website at the moment by guest columnist Lex Nande. The, FC Anyang, if you haven't read the piece, you should go on it and have a read. But it's about FC Anyang are going to be one of the next clubs to move to a football-specific stadium. The mayor of Anyang has said that it's where he's planning on putting the funds in the future. So the question you've put here is, do you think this is the best route for citizen clubs? And what would be an ideal addition to make them useful all year round?
Paul, citizen is in the team name for your club, so I'll have you start here.
Yeah, I think it is a good idea. I wouldn't want it to happen with Daejeon because they don't play in a civic stadium, then there's no running track. So I think, for FC Anyang, it makes perfect sense because it is a civic stadium with a running track, and it does make. I know they put obviously the temporary stands there, and it looks excellent. and it gives you a great view. I've been there a couple of times since they introduced those temporary stands. But yeah, I think you have to be very careful with which clubs that you do it. There has to be an appetite in that particular city. FC Anlang have proved that they definitely do have an appetite for football. 2019, when they got to the playoffs, they had record-breaking attendances there in that year. I would imagine that now, because they're top of the league, that they would, if fans were allowed in without any restrictions, it would be probably even better. So for them, it makes perfect sense. For other clubs, I think, let's say for Asan, too early. You know, they need to have time to grow and find an identity. And then have an identity. You know, they are the Violets. They have a very specific ethos in their club. So, in short, yes, but not for all. And I think it should be some of the more long-standing teams, like Suwon FC, perhaps. You know,
that's a good point. Yeah, I think the temp stands are a good temp fix. Yeah, I mean, as we've seen in Gwangju and this entire blazing hot summer. If you don't have cover on those stands, man, asking fans to sit outside, even at night when you're going and it's 33, 34 degrees, it's not that hot at night here, but like it's still, as that sun's going down, it's still plenty hot. And again, you know, I think most folks saw Michael's video when he was in Gimcheon just pouring an entire bottle of water on his head, sitting directly in the sun. Like, that's miserable. And that's us that are obsessed with this, going out there and just being like, oh, I don't know if I could do that again. You're not really going to bring in a ton of casual fans with that. So I love the temp stands to bring people in, to bring them closer. But, I mean, again, Daegu have just shown the way forward. It's just such a fantastic experience going into that stadium all around. And I haven't been lucky enough to sit in the stands yet because I went there last year and this year. But the fan experience there is exactly what I think this league needs. 10,000, 12,000, maximum 15,000 capacity for these football-specific stadiums where you actually feel a part of it. And that leads into the second part that I asked here, which is, what do you think would make an ideal addition? Because like we talk about Daegu, some tasty restaurants there. The club shop is there. It's open often. To me, you don't have to have the entire stadium in use for the area itself to be useful. Obviously, Seoul World Cup Stadium has a Home Plus built into it. There's a wedding hall and all these other things. So, Matthew, what do you think would be an interesting addition for Anyang Stadium to make it useful?
They could, Jeonbuk has a sauna and a paintball range, and I've never seen either used. I have seen people walk in and out the sauna before, but yeah, the front door, not just me creeping in. I don't think that would be the answer. But
a bowling alley. There's one at Daejeon. I've been. It's
quite good.
It doesn't sell tasty beverages of the alcoholic variety though, so
it's not really bowling then.
I don't know. I mean, I've been to the Daegu one last summer when cases were back in double digits. You remember those days? Sub 50. Days. Yeah. I have been to Daegu, and yeah, the restaurants out there, they open them up in the summer and it spreads out onto the streets. So there's really a bit of it, quite a good atmosphere there after the games and things. So I would be along that kind of thought process. I haven't really got anything interesting to hand.
I like the idea of trying to get in some futsal pitches, some indoor futsal pitches, some of like the small session stuff that you can use year round. Maybe you build it into the side where you can have it open air when the weather is nice. You can close it off when it's not, but like keep things football specific as much as you can in that regard. Also, always up for a bowling alley, but only if you're serving beer and onion rings, because how else is the ball going to come off of my hand if it doesn't have onion grease rings? Onion rings grease? Anyway. Yeah, but it's an interesting concept, and I think it's nice to see clubs being ambitious and wanting to do this, but as Lex said in that piece, I think it does have to be done intelligently, and it does have to have a lot more than just the football-specific stadium in it to make it worthwhile for the city in general. And again, Daegu's shown the way forward.
Right. And that's it for the mailbag.
Indeed, yes. So that is it. But we are on Patreon, and we are working with So Rare And because team news and injury news is so rare in K-League, we are the ones to follow. So if you are a K2 champion, that is the $5 tier, we have exclusive weekly team news, including injuries, suspensions, transfer rumors. Obviously, when the window gets a bit nearer to the winter window, we'll have those. And more K1 champion, though. That's the $10 tier. We have weekly predictions of starting lineups, brand new customized player scouting feature. And of course, we have once a month, we'll do a deep dive feature on a player of your choice and send a customized PDF scouting report. And don't forget, K Survivor is back. K1's back, so is K-League 1 Survivor. Follow at K_Survivor on Twitter. You can join in the fun. And yeah, basically on Patreon, all kinds of things going on. Tiers start as low as $1, $3, and $5. But all the juicy stuff is from $5 and above.
That's right. Yeah, I'm out of Survivor, by the way. I'm out.
Yeah, I was out ages ago. Gutted.
Tough times, man. FC Seoul, as it would be. They're the ones that got rid of me because I thought Pohang could at least get a point out of that match at home, but feels appropriate. Anyway, if you'd like to listen to this podcast live, other than watching us now on social media, you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio down in Australia. And if you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a review, 5 stars preferred, then you'll be entered into this month's K-League kit contest. It's been going on for a little while. It's the summer kit giveaway. It's the Gwangju FC pink goalkeeper top. That one's going to end soon for August, someone's birthday month. I don't know who. But for the month of August, we will have a new one. We're lining up a few different things. It should be a pretty exciting one, but I'll keep that under wraps for now. But if you just leave us a review, then you'll be entered into the contest to win that. But for now, for Matthew Binns and Paul Neat, I'm Ryan Walters. Thanks so much for watching.
공격 폭격기 김신우